Japan's Warring States period, also known as the Sengoku period, was a century of chaos, ambition, and transformation that reshaped the islands of Japan forever. Beginning in the mid-15th century, this era saw the collapse of central authority as warlords called daimyo carved out rival kingdoms through blood and betrayal. From the ashes of the Onin War rose legendary figures like Oda Nobunaga, the ruthless visionary, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the peasant-turned-conqueror, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, the master strategist. Their clashes of steel and wit forged a new Japan, blending tradition with revolutionary ideas, from European firearms to towering stone castles. This is the story of a fractured nation's journey from endless war to hard-won unity. In this documentary, we unravel the Sengoku period's epic sagas, the cunning sieges, the heart-stopping battles, and the lives forever changed by the era's unrelenting tide. Walk the blood-soaked fields of Nagashino, where samurai cavalry fell to volleys of gunfire. Stand in the shadow of Azuchi Castle, a symbol of Nobunaga's audacity. Witness the rise of an African warrior, Yasuke, who defied all odds to become a samurai. From the treachery of the Honnoji Incident to the earth-shattering Battle of Sekigahara, discover how three unifiers tamed a land of fire and steel. The Sengoku period was more than war. It was the crucible that forged modern Japan. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more history documentaries. We greatly appreciate your support. Now let's continue. Onin War begins the Sengoku period 1467. The Onin War erupted in 1467 as a bitter feud between two powerful clans, the Hosokawa and the Yamana. Both families sought to control the succession of the Ashikaga Shogunate, Japan's ruling military government. The conflict began in Kyoto, the imperial capital, where streets became battlegrounds and temples burned to the ground. For a decade, samurai armies clashed in chaotic skirmishes, turning the city into a wasteland. The war's brutality shocked even seasoned warriors, marking the start of a century-long era of chaos. At the heart of the dispute was a struggle over who would inherit the title of shogun. Ashikaga Yoshimasa, the ruling shogun, had announced his retirement, sparking a rivalry between his brother Yoshimi and his infant son Yoshihisa. The Hosokawa clan backed Yoshimi, while the Yamana supported Yoshihisa. What began as a political quarrel spiraled into nationwide violence as regional lords took sides. Kyoto's cultural splendor faded as its neighborhoods crumbled under sieges and arson. The war's impact extended far beyond the capital. Provincial daimyo, or warlords, saw the central government's weakness as an opportunity. They began ignoring orders from Kyoto, building private armies, and seizing land. Farmers and peasants suffered immensely, caught between marauding soldiers and collapsing infrastructure. The Onin War did not end with a clear victor, but left Japan fractured and leaderless. Central authority crumbles late 15th century. By 1477, the Hosokawa and Yamana clans were exhausted, and the fighting sputtered out. However, the damage was irreversible. The Ashikaga Shogunate still nominally ruled, but its authority was a hollow shell. The war's legacy was a nation divided into rival fiefdoms, each governed by ambitious warlords. This power vacuum set the stage for the Sengoku period, an age of warring states where might made right. The Onin War's conclusion did not bring peace. Instead, it ignited a century of conflict as daimyo competed for dominance. The collapse of order reshaped Japanese society, pushing military innovation and ruthless ambition to the forefront. Kyoto, once the heart of culture and politics, became a symbol of lost glory. The era of samurai empires had begun. After the Onin War, Japan's central government collapsed entirely. The Ashikaga shoguns remained in Kyoto, but their commands were ignored. Regional daimyo fortified their domains, building castles and conscripting peasant armies. These warlords ruled like kings, collecting taxes, enforcing laws, and waging private wars. Without a unifying authority, Japan fragmented into hundreds of rival territories. The Ashikaga shogunate's downfall was not sudden, but a slow unraveling. Shoguns like Yoshihisa and Yoshitane lacked the resources to suppress rebellious daimyo. Court nobles, once influential, became puppets of warlords who controlled the capital. Even the emperor, a symbolic figurehead, could not intervene. The Sengoku period became a free-for-all, where loyalty meant little and betrayal was common. Peasants faced relentless hardship. Armies requisitioned food, burned villages, and enslaved civilians. To survive, many farmers formed iki, or protest leagues, rebelling against both samurai and bandits. Religious groups like the Iko-iki, militant Buddhists, also rose to power, challenging secular rulers. The line between warlord, monk, and outlaw blurred in this lawless era. Trade and culture suffered as insecurity spread. Roads became unsafe for merchants, and regional economies stagnated. Yet some daimyo patronized the arts to legitimize their rule. Tea ceremonies, no theater, and poetry flourished in isolated pockets, offering glimpses of refinement amid the carnage. These cultural efforts could not mask the reality. Japan was a fractured nation. By the end of the 15th century, the Sengoku period was in full swing. Ambitious leaders like Hojo Sound and Takeda Nobutora carved out domains through cunning and violence. The old order was dead, and a new one, built on sword and fire, was rising. Central authority would not return until a trio of unifiers emerged decades later. Hojo Clan rises in the Kanto region, 1493. In 1493, a cunning samurai named Hojo Sound seized Izu Province, a strategic peninsula south of modern-day Tokyo. Sound, originally named Issei Moritoki, was a master of opportunism. He exploited the chaos of the Sengoku period to build a powerful clan that dominated the Kanto plain for generations. His rise marked the emergence of regional kingdoms immune to Kyoto's fading influence. Hojo Sound began as a minor retainer of the Imagawa clan, but betrayed his masters to claim land. He captured Izu's principal castle, Nirayama, through a mix of diplomacy and deception. Sound then allied with local warlords, using marriage ties and military campaigns to expand. By his death in 1519, the Hojo controlled much of Sagami and Musashi provinces, key territories near modern Tokyo. The Hojo clan's success lay in innovative governance. They implemented land surveys to maximize tax revenue and built a network of castles to defend their borders. Unlike many daimyo, the Hojo prioritized administration over brute force. They encouraged trade, repaired roads, and standardized laws, creating stability in their realm. Peasants and merchants thrived compared to neighboring war-torn regions. However, the Hojo faced constant threats. Rivals like the Uesugi and Takeda clans envied their fertile lands. Sound's descendants, including Ujisu and Ujimasa, became legendary generals. They repelled invasions through clever tactics, such as flooding enemy camps or using espionage. The Hojo's resilience made them a model for other Sengoku daimyo. By the mid-16th century, the Hojo clan was a regional superpower. Their Odawara castle became a marvel of military engineering, surrounded by vast moats and stone walls. The Hojo's blend of shrewd politics and martial prowess ensured their dominance until the rise of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Their legacy endured as proof that even in an age of chaos, order could be forged. Takeda Shingen takes power 1541. In 1541, Takeda Shingen, then known as Harunobu, overthrew his father Nobutora in a bloodless coup. The Takeda clan ruled Kai Province, a mountainous region rich in horses and gold. Shingen's revolt shocked his family, but set the stage for his transformation into one of Japan's most feared warlords. His ambition was simple: to conquer the entire nation. Shingen exiled his father to a neighboring province and consolidated power. He reformed the Takeda military, organizing soldiers into units based on skill rather than birth. His cavalry, drawn from Kai's famed horse breeders, became legendary. Shingen also allied with the Hojo and Imagawa clans, securing his borders before pushing north. His motto, swift as the wind, silent as a forest, fierce as fire, immovable as a mountain, defined his tactics. The Takeda clan's greatest rival was Uesugi Kenshin of Echigo province. Their clashes at Kawanakajima became the stuff of legend. Shingen combined brute force with psychological warfare, once sending Kenshin a gift of salt during a trade embargo to mock his piety. Despite their enmity, the two developed a grudging respect, dueling 5 times without a decisive victor. Shingen's domestic policies strengthened his realm. He promoted irrigation projects, increasing rice yields, and standardized currency using Kai's gold mines. Artists and poets flocked to his court, where Shingen, a devout Buddhist, sponsored temple renovations. His blend of culture and militarism made Kai a beacon of power in turbulent times. By the 1570s, Takeda Shingen dominated central Honshu. His red-armored cavalry struck terror into enemies, and his ambition seemed unstoppable. However, his death in 1573 during a campaign against the Oda clan left his empire vulnerable. Shingen's legacy lived on as a symbol of samurai brilliance and the fleeting nature of power. Uesugi Kenshin unifies Echigo 1548. In 1548, Uesugi Kenshin, born Nagao Kagetora, inherited Echigo province after his brother's death. A devout Buddhist and master tactician, Kenshin transformed Echigo into a fortress of resistance against rival warlords. His rivalry with Takeda Shingen became the defining conflict of the Sengoku period's middle years. Kenshin's rise was fraught with challenges. Echigo's snowy winters and isolation made it poor but defensible. Local lords initially resisted his rule, but Kenshin crushed rebellions with a mix of mercy and brutality. He presented himself as a defender of justice, often aiding weaker clans against bullies like the Hojo. His reputation for fairness earned him fierce loyalty. A celibate and ascetic, Kenshin claimed to be the avatar of Bishamonten, the Buddhist god of war. He led from the front, wielding a sword in battle despite his rank. Kenshin's most famous campaigns were against Takeda Shingen. Their 5 battles at Kawanakajima showcased Kenshin's genius for surprise attacks and Shingen's unyielding defense. Beyond warfare, Kenshin revitalized Echigo's economy. He improved roads to facilitate trade and regulated sake production to boost revenue. Kenshin also enforced strict moral codes, punishing corruption among his retainers. His governance proved that even in wartime, discipline and virtue could sustain a realm. Uesugi Kenshin died suddenly in 1578, possibly from illness or assassination. His passing left Echigo leaderless and vulnerable to Oda Nobunaga's expansion. Yet Kenshin's legacy as the Dragon of Echigo endured. He exemplified the Sengoku ideal of the warrior sage, a commander who valued honor as much as victory. Firearms arrive in Japan, year 1543. In 1543, a Chinese junk carrying Portuguese traders shipwrecked on Nagashima, an island south of Kyushu. The locals were astounded by the foreigners' matchlock guns, the first firearms seen in Japan. This accident revolutionized Japanese warfare and reshaped the Sengoku period's balance of power. The Portuguese demonstrated their arquebuses, which could pierce armor at 100 paces. The Lord of Tanegashima, Tokitaka, immediately ordered his swordsmiths to replicate the weapons. Within a year, Japanese-made Tanegashima guns were in production. Daimyo rushed to acquire firearms, recognizing their potential to overwhelm traditional samurai cavalry. Oda Nobunaga, a young warlord from Owari province, became the earliest adopter. He mass-produced guns and trained infantry to use them in volleys, a tactic unheard of in Japan. Other clans, like the Takeda and Uesugi, were slower to adapt, clinging to the samurai code of single combat. This reluctance would cost them dearly in future battles. Firearms also impacted society. Peasant soldiers could now kill armored samurai with minimal training, eroding the warrior class's prestige. Castles were redesigned with thicker walls and loopholes for gunfire. The Japanese became such skilled gunsmiths that by the 1560s, their matchlocks surpassed European models in quality. The introduction of guns symbolized Japan's pragmatism during the Sengoku period. Tradition gave way to innovation, and daimyo who embraced change thrived. Firearms didn't just win battles, they heralded a new age where technology and strategy trumped brute strength. Christianity reaches Japan 1549. In 1549, Jesuit missionary Francis Xavier arrived in Kagoshima, introducing Christianity to Japan. The Sengoku period's chaos created fertile ground for new ideas, and many daimyo saw value in aligning with European traders. Christianity's spread became intertwined with politics, warfare, and foreign influence. Xavier initially struggled to convert locals, hindered by language barriers and cultural differences. However, he won the favor of Satsuma Province's Shimazu clan by offering access to Portuguese trade ships. By 1550, Xavier moved to Yamaguchi, where he converted a local daimyo and hundreds of samurai. His successor, Cosme de Torres, expanded the mission, establishing churches in Kyushu and Honshu. Some daimyo embraced Christianity for economic reasons. Omura Sumitada, lord of Nagasaki, converted to secure Portuguese weapons and ships. Christian converts, called Kirishitan, grew to over 300,000 by the early 1600s. Missionaries like Louis Frois documented Japanese society, leaving invaluable records of Sengoku life. However, Buddhism's entrenched power led to backlash. Radical monks like those of the Iko-Iki persecuted Christians, and some daimyo banned the faith. Despite this, Christianity thrived in ports like Nagasaki, blending with local customs. The religion's rise showed Japan's growing ties to the wider world, a connection that would later be severed. Francis Xavier left Japan in 1551, but his legacy endured. Christianity became a minority faith, influencing art, language, and politics. For a brief period, it seemed Japan might embrace globalism until the Tokugawa shoguns expelled missionaries, fearing foreign domination. Battle of Miyajima, 1555. In 1555, Mori Motonari, a daimyo from western Honshu, faced Sue Harukata, a former ally turned rival. Their clash at Miyajima Island became a masterpiece of deception, securing the Mori clan's dominance over the Chugoku region. Sue Harukata had overthrown his lord, Uchi Yoshitaka, and sought to crush the Mori. Motonari, outnumbered 2-1, feigned retreat to lure Sue's fleet into the Seto Inland Sea. Under cover of night, Mori forces landed on Miyajima, a sacred island with steep terrain. They positioned themselves behind Sue's army, trapping them between the sea and the mountains. At dawn, the Mori attacked. Sue's troops, disoriented and surrounded, were slaughtered or drowned, fleeing into the tides. The victory showcased Motonari's tactical genius and willingness to exploit terrain. After the battle, he absorbed the Uchi clan's lands, becoming the most powerful warlord in western Japan. Motonari's success relied on unity. He famously taught his sons using 3 arrows. One could be broken, but 3 together could not. His heirs expanded the Mori domain, which later played a crucial role in opposing Oda Nobunaga. The Battle of Miyajima proved that clever strategy could overcome overwhelming odds. The Mori clan's rise reshaped regional politics. Control of the inland sea's trade routes brought wealth, while alliances with pirates secured naval dominance. Miyajima became a symbol of the Sengoku period's unpredictability, where loyalty and geography dictated fate. Oda Nobunaga's victory at Okehazama, 1560. In 1560, a young daimyo named Oda Nobunaga faced annihilation. Imagawa Yoshimoto, a powerful warlord from Suruga, marched into Owari province with 25,000 men. Nobunaga, commanding just 3,000, staged a daring ambush at Okehazama that changed Japanese history. Yoshimoto, confident of victory, set up camp in a narrow gorge during a thunderstorm. Nobunaga's scouts reported the enemy's location, and he led a risky flanking maneuver through the hills. As Yoshimoto's troops celebrated prematurely, Nobunaga's forces descended, screaming war cries amid the rain. The Imagawa army, caught off guard, panicked and scattered. Nobunaga himself charged into Yoshimoto's tent, slaying the warlord in single combat. The battle lasted mere hours, but shattered the Imagawa clan's power. Nobunaga's victory announced his arrival as a major daimyo. Allies like Tokugawa Ieyasu, then an Imagawa hostage, switched sides, beginning a lifelong partnership. Okehazama demonstrated Nobunaga's boldness and willingness to gamble. Unlike traditional samurai who prized honor, he embraced pragmatism, using weather and terrain as weapons. The battle also revealed his knack for psychological warfare, striking when the enemy least expected. For Japan, Okehazama marked a turning point. Nobunaga's rise signaled the beginning of reunification. His innovative tactics and ruthless efficiency would dominate the next 2 decades, paving the way for his successors to end the Sengoku period. Fourth Battle of Kawanakajima, 1561. The Fourth Battle of Kawanakajima in 1561 was the climax of the rivalry between Uesugi Kenshin and Takeda Shingen. Their armies met on the plain of Kawanakajima in Shinano Province, a site of 4 previous clashes. This encounter, however, became the most famous and bloodiest. Kenshin devised a daring night attack, crossing the Chikuma River to strike Shingen's camp. Shingen anticipated the move, arranging his troops in a crane wing formation. At dawn, Kenshin's cavalry charged, only to be enveloped by Takeda forces. The battle dissolved into chaos, with both commanders nearly killed in direct combat. Legend claims Kenshin rode into Shingen's headquarters, slashing at him with his sword. Shingen deflected the blows with his iron war fan before bodyguards intervened. The fight ended inconclusively, with both sides retreating after heavy losses. Estimates suggest over 6,000 died, including many high-ranking officers. Despite its stalemate, the battle became a symbol of samurai honor. Kenshin and Shingen exchanged gifts afterward, salt from Kenshin, swords from Shingen, in a gesture of mutual respect. Their rivalry captivated Japan, embodying the era's mix of brutality and chivalry. Kawanakajima weakened both clans. Shingen turned his attention westward, while Kenshin struggled to maintain Echigo's unity. The battle's futility underscored the Sengoku period's endless cycle of war, where even great victories rarely brought lasting peace. Siege of Odawara, 1561. In 1561, Uesugi Kenshin launched a daring assault on Odawara Castle, the impregnable stronghold of the Hojo Clan. Located in Sagami Province, Odawara was protected by massive stone walls, deep moats, and a network of watchtowers. Kenshin, seeking to expand his influence southward, marched his army through the Hakone Pass, catching the Hojo off guard. His forces raided villages and burned fields, hoping to lure Hojo Ieyasu into open battle. Hojo Ieyasu, a seasoned strategist, refused to take the bait. He ordered his troops to remain inside Odawara's defenses, trusting the castle's reputation as unbreakable. Kenshin's army surrounded the fortress, but weeks passed without progress. Frustrated, Kenshin resorted to psychological warfare. He sent messengers to mock Ieyasu's courage, even writing poems taunting the Hojo leader's refusal to fight. The siege coincided with heavy autumn rains, turning the camp into a quagmire. Kenshin's supply lines stretched thin, and disease spread among his troops. Meanwhile, Ieyasu's allies, including the Takeda clan, mobilized to relieve Odawara. Facing the threat of being trapped between two armies, Kenshin ordered a retreat. His withdrawal was orderly, but the campaign achieved little beyond showcasing Odawara's resilience. The failed siege cemented Hojo Ieyasu's reputation as a master of defense. His ability to outwait a legendary commander like Kenshin proved that patience could trump aggression. For Kenshin, the campaign was a humbling reminder that even the greatest generals faced limits. Odawara Castle would remain a Hojo bastion for another 3 decades, a thorn in the side of would-be conquerors. The Siege of Odawara highlighted the challenges of besieging well-fortified positions during the Sengoku period. It also underscored the importance of alliances, as Ieyasu's network of allies ensured his survival. Kenshin returned to Echigo, shifting his focus to his eternal rival, Takeda Shingen. The Hojo clan's dominance in the Kanto region remained unchallenged, for now. Nobunaga enters Kyoto 1568. In 1568, Oda Nobunaga achieved a pivotal milestone by marching into Kyoto, the imperial capital. His arrival marked the beginning of Japan's reunification after a century of fragmentation. Nobunaga claimed to support Ashikaga Yoshiaki, a claimant to the shogunate, but his true goal was to wield power through a puppet ruler. Nobunaga's path to Kyoto was cleared by his defeat of the Rokaku clan, who had opposed Yoshiaki's ascension. With Tokugawa Ieyasu's support, Nobunaga secured key roads and neutralized rival warlords. His army entered the capital unopposed, a stark contrast to the violence of the Onin War a century earlier. Nobunaga's disciplined troops impressed Kyoto's nobles, who had endured decades of lawlessness. Ashikaga Yoshiaki was installed as the 15th Ashikaga shogun, but Nobunaga quickly revealed his intentions. He demanded control over military appointments and land disputes, reducing Yoshiaki to a figurehead. Nobunaga also seized lucrative estates around Kyoto, funding his campaigns through their revenues. His actions alienated traditional power brokers, including Buddhist temples and court aristocrats. To solidify his authority, Nobunaga implemented sweeping reforms. He abolished toll barriers on highways to stimulate trade and standardized measurements for rice taxes. These policies won him support from merchants and peasants, but angered local daimyo accustomed to autonomy. Nobunaga's vision of a centralized state clashed with the feudal traditions of the Sengoku period. Nobunaga's entry into Kyoto reshaped Japan's political landscape. By controlling the shogun, he gained legitimacy to intervene in regional conflicts. However, his heavy-handed tactics sparked resentment. Yoshiaki secretly conspired with rival warlords, setting the stage for a nationwide coalition against Nobunaga. The stage was set for a clash between the Old Order and Nobunaga's revolutionary ambitions. Battle of Anegawa, 1570. The Battle of Anegawa in 1570 pitted Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu against the combined forces of the Azai and Asakura clans. Fought near Lake Biwa, this clash demonstrated the power of alliances in the Sengoku period's complex wars. The Azai, led by Nagamasa, had betrayed Nobunaga by siding with the Asakura, their longtime allies from Echizen province. Nobunaga, enraged by the betrayal, mobilized 20,000 troops. Tokugawa Ieyasu joined him with 5,000 men, honoring their long-standing partnership. The Allied forces faced 18,000 Azai and Asakura warriors across the Anegawa River. Nobunaga's strategy relied on overwhelming the enemy with coordinated attacks, while the Azai hoped to exploit their knowledge of the terrain. The battle began with a fierce exchange of arrows and gunfire. Nobunaga's arquebusiers disrupted the Asakura ranks, creating openings for infantry charges. Ieyasu's troops crossed the river under heavy fire, engaging the Azai in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The fighting spilled into the riverbed, turning the water red with blood. Samurai on both sides shouted their clan names, seeking glory in single combat. Nobunaga's forces prevailed by midday, driving the Azai and Asakura into retreat. The victory showcased the effectiveness of firearms combined with traditional tactics. However, the battle was not decisive. The Azai and Asakura retreated to their mountain fortresses, forcing Nobunaga into a protracted campaign. The Battle of Anegawa solidified the bond between Nobunaga and Ieyasu. Their cooperation became a model for future alliances, proving that unity could overcome even entrenched enemies. For the Azai clan, the defeat marked the beginning of their downfall. Nobunaga's thirst for vengeance would soon consume them entirely. Anti-Nobunaga coalition forms 1570. By 1570, Oda Nobunaga's rapid expansion had united his enemies into a powerful coalition. The alliance included the Azai, Asakura, Iko-Iki Buddhists, and even disaffected members of the Ashikaga Shogunate. Their goal was simple: halt Nobunaga's rise before he dominated all Japan. The coalition's core was the Azai-Asakura alliance, reinforced by their shared hatred of Nobunaga. Iko-Iki militants, who controlled fortified temples like Ishiyama Hongan-Ji, joined after Nobunaga seized their lands. Ashikaga Yoshiaki, the puppet shogun, secretly encouraged daimyo to rebel, distributing letters condemning Nobunaga's tyranny. Even Takeda Shingen, Nobunaga's nominal ally, considered joining the coalition. Nobunaga faced threats on multiple fronts. In the east, the Iko-Iki harassed his supply lines. In the north, the Asakura threatened Kyoto. To the west, the Mori clan began supporting rebel factions. Despite these challenges, Nobunaga's army remained disciplined and well-equipped. His control of Kyoto provided access to resources his enemies lacked. The coalition's weakness was its lack of coordination. While the Azai and Asakura focused on defending their territories, the Iko-Iki preferred guerrilla warfare. Takeda Shingen delayed his involvement, waiting for an opportune moment to strike. Nobunaga exploited these divisions, attacking each enemy individually. His victory at Anegawa shattered the Azai-Asakura front, buying time to address other threats. The anti-Nobunaga coalition marked a turning point in the Sengoku period. It revealed the desperation of Nobunaga's foes and their inability to match his vision. Though the coalition lingered for years, its failures allowed Nobunaga to cement his reputation as Japan's unifier. The age of scattered warlords was ending, replaced by the rise of a centralizing force. Siege of Nagashima, 1571 to 1574. The Siege of Nagashima, lasting from 1571 to 1574, was one of Oda Nobunaga's most grueling campaigns. The Iko-Iki, a militant Buddhist sect, had turned Nagashima's network of rivers and fortresses into a bastion of resistance. Nobunaga, determined to crush this threat, employed relentless tactics that tested both his army and his conscience. Nagashima's geography made it a nightmare for attackers. Swamps and canals protected the Iko-Iki's wooden stockades, while their navy controlled nearby waterways. Nobunaga's first assault in 1571 ended in disaster when floods trapped his troops, leading to heavy losses. Undeterred, He returned in 1573 with a larger force, building dikes to drain the marshes. The Iko-Iki fought with fanatical resolve. Peasant men, women, and even children hurled stones and fired arrows from the walls. Nobunaga's arquebusiers picked off defenders, but progress was slow. In 1574, he adopted a brutal new strategy, surrounding Nagashima with palisades and setting them ablaze. The fire spread to the fortress, killing thousands of civilians and warriors alike. The fall of Nagashima shocked Japan. Nobunaga's willingness to slaughter non-combatants earned him the nickname Demon King. Yet the victory secured his hold on Owari and Ise provinces, removing a major obstacle to his dominance. The Iko-Iki continued to resist from Ishiyama Hongan-Ji, but their power was irreparably broken. Nagashima became a symbol of the Sengoku period's brutality. Nobunaga's campaign showed that no fortress was unassailable, and no enemy too entrenched. His merciless methods foreshadowed the total warfare that would define his later years. For the Iko-Iki, the siege was a martyrdom that strengthened their resolve, even in defeat. Ashikaga Shogunate falls 1573. In 1573, Oda Nobunaga formally ended the Ashikaga Shogunate, a dynasty that had ruled Japan for over 2 centuries. Ashikaga Yoshiaki, the 15th shogun, had conspired with Nobunaga's enemies, prompting a final confrontation. Nobunaga's expulsion of Yoshiaki from Kyoto marked the death of Japan's old political order. Nobunaga's decision to abolish the shogunate was revolutionary. For centuries, military rulers had governed in the emperor's name, but Nobunaga rejected this tradition. He centralized power under his own authority, bypassing the imperial court. This bold move alienated traditionalists, but cemented Nobunaga's image as a reformer. The Ashikaga's fall had symbolic weight. Kyoto's nobles, who had long depended on the shogunate, now relied on Nobunaga's patronage. Regional daimyo realized that legitimacy no longer flowed from the shogun, it came from strength. Nobunaga's rise heralded a new era where power was taken, not inherited. Yoshiaki lived out his days as a Buddhist monk, a relic of a bygone age. The Ashikaga shogunate's demise cleared the path for Nobunaga's ambition. Japan's fractured political landscape was finally consolidating, though the cost in blood and tradition would be immense. Death of Takeda Shingen, 1573. In 1573, Takeda Shingen, the legendary Tiger of Kai, died under mysterious circumstances during a campaign against the Oda clan. His passing marked the decline of the Takeda clan and left a void in the Sengoku period's intricate web of rivalries. Shingen had been besieging Noda Castle when he was struck by a musket ball fired from the walls. Some accounts claim the shot was fired by a sniper. Others suggest illness caused his death. Regardless, Shingen's demise was kept secret for months to prevent panic. His son Katsuyori inherited a realm stretched thin by constant warfare. Shingen's death robbed Japan of one of its most brilliant generals. His campaigns against Uesugi Kenshin and the Hojo Clan had made him a living legend. Katsuyori, though brave, lacked his father's strategic genius. The Takeda clan's allies began to waver, sensing weakness. Nobunaga seized the opportunity to pressure the Takeda, cutting off their access to trade routes. Katsuyori, determined to prove himself, prepared for a decisive confrontation. The stage was set for a clash that would determine the Takeda's fate and reshape Japan's balance of power. Takeda Shingen's legacy endured in military treatises and folklore. His innovative tactics and leadership inspired future generals, even as his clan faltered. The Sengoku period's relentless cycle of rise and fall had claimed another titan. Battle of Nagashino, 1575. The Battle of Nagashino in 1575 shattered the myth of samurai invincibility. Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu faced Takeda Katsuyori's famed cavalry, using firearms and palisades to devastating effect. This clash redefined Japanese warfare, proving that technology could triumph over tradition. Katsuyori, seeking to avenge his father Shingen, invaded Mikawa province. Nobunaga and Ieyasu assembled 38,000 troops at Nagashino Castle, constructing wooden barriers along the Shidarahara plain. Behind these walls, 3,000 arquebusiers waited in 3 rotating lines, a tactic borrowed from European musketry. The Takeda cavalry charged at dawn, their banners fluttering. Nobunaga's gunners fired volleys in succession, cutting down horses and riders. The barriers disrupted the cavalry's momentum, funneling them into kill zones. By midday, the Takeda army was decimated, with 10,000 dead, including many veteran generals. Nagashino marked the end of the Takeda clan's dominance. Katsuyori fled with a remnant of his army, his reputation in ruins. Nobunaga's victory showcased the power of organized gunfire, forcing daimyo to modernize or perish. The samurai code of single combat faded in favor of disciplined, collective warfare. The battle also strengthened the Nobunaga-Ieyasu alliance. Their combined forces became unstoppable, clearing the path to unification. Nagashino was more than a military victory. It was a revolution in how Japan waged war. Azuchi Castle rises 1576. In 1576, Oda Nobunaga completed Azuchi Castle, a towering symbol of his power and vision. Perched on Lake Biwa's shores, the castle blended European and Japanese architectural styles, reflecting Nobunaga's openness to innovation. Its 7-story keep, adorned with gold leaf and painted screens, awed visitors and intimidated rivals. Azuchi was more than a fortress, it was a political statement. Nobunaga hosted foreign missionaries, tea masters, and artists within its walls, showcasing his cultural sophistication. The castle's design emphasized grandeur over traditional defensibility, a gamble that paid off by projecting invincibility. The castle's construction employed thousands of laborers and artisans. Stone walls, a novelty in Japan, replaced wooden palisades, making Azuchi resistant to fire and cannon. Nobunaga's chambers featured imported glass windows and folding screens depicting European cities, gifts from Jesuit missionaries. Azuchi Castle became the administrative heart of Nobunaga's realm. From here, he issued decrees, planned campaigns, and received tribute from subdued daimyo. Its destruction in 1582, following Nobunaga's death, could not erase its legacy as a marvel of Sengoku engineering. Azuchi embodied Nobunaga's ambition to reshape Japan. Its fusion of art and power set a precedent for future rulers, including Toyotomi Hideyoshi. The castle stood as a testament to a man who dared to reimagine his world, one stone wall at a time. Ishiyama Hongan-Ji falls, 1580. In 1580, Oda Nobunaga finally captured Ishiyama Hongan-Ji, the Iko-Iki's mountain fortress, ending a decade-long siege. The fall of this Buddhist stronghold marked the culmination of Nobunaga's crusade against religious militancy and one of his most hard-fought victories. Ishiyama Hongan-Ji, located in present-day Osaka, was a sprawling complex of temples, storehouses, and defensive walls. The Iko-Iki, devout followers of the Jodo Shinshu sect, had repelled countless attacks using guerrilla tactics and naval support from the Mori clan. Nobunaga blockaded the fortress by land and sea, but supplies still slipped through. The siege turned in Nobunaga's favor when he secured the Mori clan's neutrality through diplomacy. Cut off from reinforcements, the Iko-Iki negotiated a surrender. Nobunaga, uncharacteristically merciful, allowed the monks to leave peacefully in exchange for disarming. The fortress was razed, its treasures confiscated. Ishiyama's fall broke the Iko-Iki's power. Though scattered uprisings continued, they no longer threatened Nobunaga's rule. The victory also demonstrated his ability to combine military force with shrewd diplomacy, a skill that set him apart from rivals. For the Iko-Iki, the loss was spiritual as much as military. Their dream of a Buddhist theocracy died with Ishiyama Hongan-Ji. Nobunaga's triumph cleared the way for his next goal, subduing the Mori and Takeda clans. Japan's reunification was within sight, but dark clouds loomed on the horizon. Honnoji Incident ends Nobunaga's reign, 1582. In June 1582, Oda Nobunaga's meteoric rise was cut short during the Honnoji Incident, a shocking betrayal by his trusted general, Akechi Mitsuhide. Nobunaga had been resting at Honnoji Temple in Kyoto with a small retinue, preparing to reinforce his army in western Japan. Mitsuhide, tasked with leading troops to aid an ally, abruptly turned his forces toward Kyoto. Under the cover of dawn, he surrounded the temple, shouting, "The enemy is in the Honnoji!" Nobunaga, realizing escape was impossible, fought alongside a handful of guards before retreating to the temple's inner chambers. As flames engulfed the building, he committed seppuku, ending his life at 49. The exact motive for Mitsuhide's betrayal remains debated. Some cite personal grudges, others speculate a secret alliance with Nobunaga's enemies. Whatever the reason, the act sent shockwaves across Japan. The assassination left Nobunaga's empire in chaos. His heir, Nobutada, died defending nearby Nijo Castle, and key territories fell into disarray. Mitsuhide declared himself shogun, but his reign lasted mere days. Nobunaga's loyal generals, including Toyotomi Hideyoshi, raced to avenge their lord. The stage was set for a rapid power struggle that would reshape Japan's future. The Honnoji Incident marked the end of Oda Nobunaga's revolutionary era. His bold reforms, centralized governance, firearm warfare, and religious suppression had brought Japan to the brink of unification. Yet his ruthless methods bred resentment, culminating in his dramatic downfall. Nobunaga's legacy lived on through his successors, who would finish the work he began. For Mitsuhide, the gamble failed catastrophically. His betrayal earned him the scorn of contemporaries, who nicknamed him the 13-Day Shogun. The incident became a cautionary tale about ambition and loyalty in the Sengoku period's cutthroat world. Battle of Yamazaki avenges Nobunaga 1582. 13 days after the Honnoji Incident, Toyotomi Hideyoshi confronted Akechi Mitsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki. Hideyoshi, having abandoned a campaign against the Mori clan, marched his army nearly 200 kilometers in a week, a feat that stunned Japan. Mitsuhide, camped near Yamazaki's Tenozan Hill, scrambled to rally support, but allies deserted him. The battle began with a clash over control of the Enmyoji Temple. Hideyoshi's forces, though exhausted, used the terrain to their advantage. They seized high ground and deployed arquebusiers to pepper Mitsuhide's troops. A thunderstorm turned the battlefield to mud, but Hideyoshi's superior numbers and morale overwhelmed the traitors. Mitsuhide fled northward, disguised as a peasant. According to legend, he was killed by a bandit's spear while foraging for food. His severed head was displayed in Kyoto, a grim warning to would-be usurpers. Hideyoshi, now the avenger of Nobunaga, emerged as the Oda clan's de facto leader. Yamazaki solidified Hideyoshi's reputation as a military genius. His lightning march and tactical brilliance showcased his ability to seize opportunity, a skill that would define his rise. The battle also demonstrated the importance of loyalty. Many of Mitsuhide's men defected mid-fight, sealing his fate. For Japan, Yamazaki marked the transition from Nobunaga's era to Hideyoshi's. The victor moved quickly to consolidate power, offering clemency to former enemies. The Sengoku period's next chapter, the Age of the Great Unifier, had begun. Hideyoshi conquers Shikoku 1585. By 1585, Toyotomi Hideyoshi had turned his attention to Shikoku, Japan's smallest main island, ruled by the Chosokabe clan. Chosokabe Motochika, a cunning warlord, had united Shikoku through decades of warfare. Hideyoshi, seeking to eliminate rivals, demanded Motochika surrender half his territory. When the offer was refused, Hideyoshi launched a massive amphibious invasion. Over 100,000 troops crossed the inland sea, dwarfing the Chosokabe's 25,000 defenders. Hideyoshi's fleet, commanded by his half-brother Hidenaga, blockaded ports while armies stormed key castles. Motochika, outnumbered and outgunned, adopted guerrilla tactics, but Hideyoshi's scorched earth campaigns devastated the countryside. Within 3 months, Motochika surrendered. Hideyoshi, impressed by his opponent's resilience, allowed him to retain Tosa province as a vassal. The lenient terms encouraged other daimyo to submit peacefully. Shikoku's fall demonstrated Hideyoshi's preference for diplomacy over annihilation, a stark contrast to Nobunaga's brutality. The conquest expanded Hideyoshi's control to 3 main islands. He redistributed lands to loyal generals, ensuring their dependence on his favor. Shikoku's resources, particularly its timber and naval bases, bolstered Hideyoshi's plans for further campaigns. Hideyoshi's victory also showcased his logistical mastery. Coordinating land and naval forces across treacherous straits was a feat unmatched in Japanese history. Shikoku became a stepping stone to his next target, Kyushu, where the Shimazu clan reigned supreme. Kyushu Campaign unifies the South 1587. In 1587, Toyotomi Hideyoshi set his sights on Kyushu, Japan's southernmost island, dominated by the Shimazu clan. The Shimazu, having conquered much of Kyushu through relentless warfare, dismissed Hideyoshi's demands for submission. Their reply, "A small fish cannot swallow a whale." Hideyoshi responded with the largest army Japan had ever seen, over 200,000 men. The invasion unfolded in a two-pronged assault. Hideyoshi's navy, led by Kuki Yoshitaka, blockaded the Shimazu ports, while land forces under Hideyoshi's brother Hidenaga marched from the north. The Shimazu, masters of ambush tactics, scored early victories but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. At the Battle of Sendai River, Hideyoshi's arquebusiers decimated the Shimazu cavalry, forcing a retreat. By July, the Shimazu were cornered in their ancestral stronghold of Kagoshima. Facing annihilation, they surrendered unconditionally. Hideyoshi, again showing mercy, allowed them to retain Satsuma province. His leniency aimed to transform former foes into loyal vassals, a policy critical to unifying Japan. The Kyushu Campaign cemented Hideyoshi's reputation as the realm's supreme leader. He redistributed lands to allies like the Kuroda and Kobayakawa clans, ensuring no single daimyo could challenge him. The victory also secured trade routes with Portugal and China, funneling wealth into Hideyoshi's coffers. However, the campaign exposed cracks in Hideyoshi's coalition. Many daimyo resented the cost in lives and gold, sowing seeds of future discord. For now, though, Japan stood united under one ruler, a feat unimaginable a generation earlier. Siege of Odawara topples the Hojo 1590. In 1590, Toyotomi Hideyoshi besieged Odawara Castle, the final bastion of the Hojo clan. The Hojo, rulers of the Kanto region for a century, had defied Hideyoshi's orders to attend a ceremony in Kyoto, a grave insult. Hideyoshi responded by mobilizing 200,000 troops, encircling the castle in a show of force meant to awe all remaining rivals. The Hojo, led by Ujimasa, relied on Odawara's legendary defenses, 20-meter stone walls, triple moats, and enough provisions to last years. Hideyoshi, however, turned the siege into a political spectacle. He built a lavish camp with tea houses, theaters, and markets, hosting daimyo and their families. The message was clear: resistance was futile. After 3 months, infighting fractured the Hojo leadership. Ujimasa's brother Ujiteru urged surrender, while his son Ujinao vowed to fight. Demoralized and isolated, the Hojo capitulated. Hideyoshi ordered Ujimasa to commit seppuku but spared his family, annexing the Kanto region for his ally Tokugawa Ieyasu. Odawara's fall marked the end of major resistance to Hideyoshi's rule. Japan was finally unified, a century after the Onin War began. Hideyoshi redistributed lands nationwide, banning private wars and disarming peasants through the Sword Hunt Edict. The Sengoku period's age of chaos had officially closed. The siege also showcased Hideyoshi's psychological brilliance. By transforming warfare into theater, he broke enemies without bloodshed. Odawara became a symbol of the new Japan, a land where cleverness triumphed over brute strength. Invasion of Korea begins 1592. In 1592, Toyotomi Hideyoshi launched an ill-fated invasion of Korea, seeking to conquer China's Ming dynasty. His motives remain enigmatic. Some claim megalomania, others a desire to occupy restless samurai. Over 160,000 troops crossed the Tsushima Strait, catching Korea unprepared. Initial victories were swift. Japanese forces, led by veterans like Kato Kiyomasa and Konishi Yukinaga, captured Seoul within weeks. Korean Admiral Yi Sun-sin's turtle ships, however, dominated sea battles, severing supply lines. The Ming dynasty intervened, sending armies to aid Korea. Stalemate ensued, with brutal fighting around Pyongyang and Busan. Hideyoshi, misled by optimistic reports, believed victory was imminent. In reality, his armies were overextended and undersupplied. The campaign drained Japan's resources, sparking resentment among daimyo. When peace talks failed in 1596, Hideyoshi ordered a second invasion, which fared no better. The Korean invasions exposed Hideyoshi's strategic limits. His land-centric tactics faltered against naval power and guerrilla warfare. The war also strained his alliances, as daimyo grew weary of funding a distant conflict. By 1598, the campaign collapsed. Hideyoshi's death that year led to a full withdrawal. Korea lay devastated, but Japan gained nothing. The failed adventure marked the beginning of the end for Hideyoshi's legacy and set the stage for Tokugawa Ieyasu's rise. Hideyoshi's death creates chaos, 1598. In September 1598, Toyotomi Hideyoshi died at Fushimi Castle, leaving his 5-year-old son Hideyori as heir. A regency council, led by Tokugawa Ieyasu and 5 senior daimyo, was tasked with governing until Hideyori came of age. Rivalries within the council erupted immediately, fracturing Japan's hard-won unity. Hideyoshi's final years had been marked by paranoia. He ordered the execution of his nephew Hidetsugu, fearing a coup, and purged potential threats. His death created a power vacuum as daimyo jockeyed for influence. Ieyasu, the most powerful regent, began forging alliances, marrying his children into rival clans. The regency's authority crumbled when Ieyasu seized Fushimi Castle, claiming it to protect Hideyori. Other regents, notably Ishida Mitsunari, accused him of usurping power. Japan split into 2 factions, the Eastern Army backing Ieyasu and the Western Army supporting Mitsunari. Hideyoshi's dream of a lasting Toyotomi dynasty teetered on the brink. His son, hidden in Osaka Castle, became a pawn in a game he couldn't understand. The stage was set for a climactic battle to decide Japan's fate. Hideyoshi's death marked the end of an era. His rise from peasant to ruler embodied the Sengoku period's chaos and opportunity. Yet his failures, the Korean quagmire and succession crisis, underscored the fragility of unity built on one man's ambition. Battle of Sekigahara decides Japan's fate 1600. On October 21st, 1600, the Battle of Sekigahara, the largest and bloodiest samurai clash, decided Japan's future. Tokugawa Ieyasu's Eastern Army, 75,000 strong, faced Ishida Mitsunari's Western Army of 80,000. The foggy morning began with tense standoffs, as both sides awaited traitors to tip the balance. Ieyasu's cunning shone as he bribed key Western daimyo, including Kobayakawa Hideaki. When Kobayakawa's forces defected mid-battle, the Western lines collapsed. Mitsunari fled but was captured and executed. Ieyasu's victory was total, leaving 30,000 dead and Japan his to rule. Sekigahara's aftermath saw brutal reprisals. Ieyasu confiscated lands from defeated lords, redistributing them to allies. The Toyotomi clan was spared, but reduced to ruling only Osaka Castle. Ieyasu, now the nation's unopposed leader, began crafting a new order. The battle's legacy was profound. It ended the Sengoku period's century of war and established the Tokugawa Shogunate, which would rule Japan for over 250 years. Loyalty, betrayal, and fate at Sekigahara became enduring themes in Japanese culture. For Ieyasu, patience had paid off. The old badger outlived Nobunaga and Hideyoshi, securing his place as Japan's ultimate unifier. His victory proved that in the Sengoku era, survival mattered more than glory. Tokugawa Shogunate rises 1603. In 1603, Emperor Go-Yozei appointed Tokugawa Ieyasu as shogun, formalizing his rule. Ieyasu established his government in Edo, modern Tokyo, shifting Japan's political center from Kyoto. The Tokugawa Shogunate, designed to prevent another Sengoku-era collapse, imposed strict controls on daimyo, trade, and foreign influence. Ieyasu's policies prioritized stability. He mandated Sankinkotai, requiring daimyo to alternate years living in Edo and their domains, a costly practice that prevented rebellion. Christianity was banned, and foreign traders restricted to Nagasaki. The social hierarchy, with samurai atop, became rigidly enforced. Edo blossomed into a metropolis, its streets planned around Ieyasu's castle. Roads like the Tokaido connected provinces, facilitating commerce and control. The shogunate's isolationist policies, later known as sakoku, began taking shape, though full closure came decades later. Ieyasu abdicated in 1605 to secure his son Hidetada's succession, but retained power until his death in 1616. His reign laid the groundwork for the Pax Tokugawa, an era of peace and cultural flourishing. The Tokugawa shogunate's rise marked the Sengoku period's definitive end. Ieyasu's shrewd governance ensured Japan would not fracture again until the 19th century's upheavals. Siege of Osaka ends the Toyotomi 1614 to 1615. In 1614, Tokugawa Ieyasu moved to erase the last threat to his rule, Toyotomi Hideyori, Hideyoshi's son, who resided in Osaka Castle. Though Hideyori pledged loyalty, rumors of rebellion prompted Ieyasu to demand the castle's demolition. When Hideyori refused, the Tokugawa besieged Osaka with 150,000 troops. The Winter Siege, 1614, saw Osaka's outer defenses fall, but Hideyori's Ronin defenders held the inner keep. A temporary truce collapsed in 1615, leading to the Summer Siege. Tokugawa cannons, including European weapons, bombarded the castle day and night. Hideyori's mother, Yododono, pleaded for peace, but Ieyasu demanded unconditional surrender. On June 4, 1615, Tokugawa forces breached the walls. Hideyori and Yododono committed seppuku as flames consumed the castle. The Toyotomi line perished, along with thousands of loyalists. Ieyasu, now unchallenged, declared the Tokugawa's eternal rule. The siege of Osaka extinguished the last embers of the Sengoku period. Japan entered an era of enforced peace, where internal wars were unthinkable. The Tokugawa shogunate, secure at last, turned its gaze inward, for better or worse. For Hideyoshi's legacy, the fall was tragic. His son's death erased the Toyotomi name, a stark reminder that in the Sengoku era, even giants could be forgotten. Ieyasu's victory, however, ensured Japan's unity for centuries to come. Yasuke the Black Samurai. Currently, with renewed interest thanks to games like AC Shadows, we couldn't make this video without mentioning the African samurai during the Sengoku period. In 1581, a towering African man named Yasuke arrived in Japan alongside Jesuit missionaries, captivating crowds with his height, dark skin, and strength. Likely originating from Mozambique or Ethiopia, Yasuke was enslaved as a young man and brought to India before joining Alessandro Valignano, a Jesuit inspector touring Asia. When Valignano met Oda Nobunaga in Kyoto, the warlord demanded to see Yasuke, whose appearance defied all Japanese notions of the outside world. Nobunaga, intrigued by Yasuke, initially suspected his skin was stained with ink. After the Jesuits explained Yasuke's origins, Nobunaga ordered him scrubbed, but the color remained. Impressed by Yasuke's physique and demeanor, Nobunaga took him into service, granting him the status of a samurai. Yasuke learned Japanese customs, wore traditional armor, and fought alongside Nobunaga's elite guards, becoming the first foreign-born warrior to earn such honor. Yasuke's presence at Nobunaga's side turned heads everywhere. Peasants lined roads to glimpse the Black Samurai, while rival warlords whispered tales of his supernatural strength. He participated in key battles, including the suppression of Iko-Iki rebellions, and guarded Nobunaga during campaigns. His loyalty was tested during the Honnoji Incident in 1582, when Akechi Mitsuhide's forces ambushed Nobunaga. Yasuke fought valiantly, buying time for Nobunaga to commit seppuku before retreating to join Nobunaga's heir, Oda Nobutada. After Nobutada's death, Yasuke was captured by Mitsuhide's troops. Unfamiliar with the concept of an African samurai, Mitsuhide spared his life but stripped him of his swords, declaring him not Japanese and therefore unworthy of ritual suicide. Yasuke was returned to the Jesuits, vanishing from historical records. Some accounts suggest he resumed missionary work or sailed abroad, but his ultimate fate remains a mystery. Yasuke's story is a testament to the Sengoku period's complexity. In an era defined by rigid social hierarchies, he transcended barriers of race and origin through skill and loyalty. His brief but remarkable career illuminates Japan's fleeting engagement with the wider world, a curiosity that would soon be stifled by centuries of isolation. Conclusion: the Sengoku period, Japan's age of warring states, ended not with a whimper, but with the thunderous rise of the Tokugawa shogunate, a dynasty that ushered in over 2 centuries of peace. From the ashes of ceaseless conflict emerged a unified Japan, its identity forged by the ambitions of Oda Nobunaga, the ingenuity of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and the patience of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Their legacies, etched in stone castles, refined arts, and strict social order, remind us that even the darkest chaos can birth enduring light. The stories of samurai loyalty, peasant resilience, and cultural rebirth stand as timeless lessons in power, adaptation, and the cost of unity. As the dust settled on the siege of Osaka, Japan turned inward, closing a chapter of bloodshed to write one of tranquility. Yet the Sengoku period's echoes linger. In the sword scars of ancient castles, the whispers of betrayed alliances, and the legend of Yasuke, the African warrior who defied boundaries. History is not just the past, it's a mirror reflecting our own struggles and triumphs. If this journey through Japan's epic past moved you, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most gripping sagas. Your support means the world to us. It fuels our mission to uncover the stories that shaped our world. Thank you for watching, and as always, See you in the next video.